Pop those drinks. It's time for Sports Around the Bar.
Hey guys, welcome into Sports Around the Bar. We hope you had a great Memorial Day. Obviously we did. You can tell we're not in the same location.
Nope, it's more back to what our old episode, Sports Around the Cabana.
Mm-hmm. And we got a lot to talk about today. You know, we're going to go into the NFL and talk about some of these suspensions coming up because if you haven't heard, Zeke has been a bad boy again and is in trouble with the law. We're going to talk about whether he deserves to be suspended or not. We're also going to talk about Tyreek Hill and where he stands and what we think his suspension is going to look like. Also, Ben Watson, another man in trouble with the law. We're going to talk about him missing some time here and maybe get around to Patrick Peterson as well. Also, Donovan McNabb, if you listen to him, Hall of Fame quarterback who is on his way and ready to be in the Hall of Fame. We're going to talk about whether he deserves it or not. We want to get your opinion as well. Finally, we're talking NBA playoffs, NHL as well, which is going on right now. So hopefully you joined us and you didn't miss that. If you're interested, hopefully you're going to stick around for that part of the show too. But we got a lot to talk about here, Drew. Is there anything you're more excited about to talk about than any of it?
Yeah, guys, I just want to let everyone know, happy Memorial Day. Thank you to all the servicemen that have served and are serving right now and women. We appreciate it because we wouldn't be here right now being able to drink beer and eating delicious ribs, I can tell you right now.
And talk sports with you guys, man. It's all thanks to the men and women in uniform, and we could be more grateful. So let's kind of remember the meaning of the holiday and everything, too, as we move forward.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Speaking of moving forward, we'll go through it, and we'll start with some of these NFL suspensions here, Drew. Let's talk about Zeke Elliott. Obviously, he had a little bit of trouble. I believe it was down in New Orleans where he had a little bit of a run-in with the law, wound up in handcuffs, but not arrested. I'm told there's a difference. They let him go afterward, didn't do any time in jail.
So that time I got pulled up to my parents' house, and I had handcuffs on my wrists, and can I tell my parents that same thing? That
it's not the same.
I didn't get arrested.
Exactly.
No, it's an issue. There's no doubt about it. He seems like he cannot stay out of trouble. I mean, this guy's pushing every button he possibly can, and we all know the lifespan of a running back, let alone an NFL player, is very short. And what this guy's doing to himself is he's shortening his career even more. If this does turn out to be a suspension from Roger Goodell and the NFL, to be honest, even though this guy has such great talent, do the Cowboys stick with this? I mean, is it something that's like, okay, you don't have a long life. You seem like you can't find yourself on the field enough because you're always being suspended. Should they move on?
Well, more importantly, we haven't paid you yet. You're still on that rookie deal. I mean, they're not locked in long-term to him. So for all this to happen to Zeke at this point in his career where he has not had the opportunity to make the big dollars yet and lock into a long-term deal like Todd Gurley got, he's absolutely at risk because – again, the Cowboys could absolutely decide to move on. They have Amari Cooper who needs to get paid. They have Dak Prescott who looks like he's going to be the highest paid quarterback in NFL history here. We both agree he shouldn't be.
Right.
But they're probably going to have to pay him, right? It's just, one of those things that you have to do when you've got the quarterback you believe in. Zeke's almost the odd man out already. They have to come up with the money to sign this guy or the defense falls apart or the offensive line falls apart. The Cowboys have some difficult decisions to make going forward, and Zeke seems to be making it easier on them by getting into trouble like this because how do you trust him to stick around forever?
It's an issue. And unfortunately for him, he always seems to be the poster child of we're going to suspend him so we can stop everyone else from doing what he's done. And
when you've been that guy, I mean,
he's already been it once.
You have to keep your nose clean at that point because Goodell's out for blood, right? I mean, you remember all the big legal spat they had and everything where Goodell wanted him suspended multiple games and Zeke wanted to appeal and everything else, and he still wound up suspended. Now you're going and putting yourself in the same situation and really – honestly, you're putting yourself and the team in a bad spot here. I think he gets another 4 to 6 games. I don't think he deserves it. Again, he didn't even get arrested. It was just an altercation. He wound up in handcuffs, but they let him go by the end of the night. He didn't even go to jail. How are you going to suspend a guy for not going to jail?
Because they've made him a poster child once of you don't mess around, don't make the
example.
NFL, don't look bad. You're a superstar in this league, and just because of that, we're going to sit there and say, hey, we're going to prove to everyone just because we're not going to let you do it. We're not going to let anyone else do it. We're going to suspend you to prove it.
Absolutely. I agree with you, man. I think, again, it comes down to what you've done in the past, and he's on Goodell's shit list. Let's be honest. Goodell is sitting there looking at him like, if something happens and I get the opportunity to suspend Zeke, I'm going to do it. So he's put himself in a bad situation, and if you're Roger Goodell, I think you're probably licking your chops saying, okay, I'm going to get a little bit of payback for all that fighting I had to do to suspend you the first time. Does he sue again? Do you kind of fight this one too? I would. I mean, especially if nothing happened, but nothing happened last time.
Yeah, this would be more of a one I think he should fight. Like I said again, I really honestly think he will be, again, the poster child of quit getting in trouble. So That's literally what I think about it. I think they sit there and go, you're a superstar. Everyone, you're the face of a franchise. There's no doubt about it. Dak is not the face of the franchise of the Cowboys. It's Zeke. And
Tell me when the money starts rolling in.
well, until that happens, but can you sit there and say that
He's
Dak
definitely the most important piece. I mean, the offense still runs through the running
right
game
through
in
him.
Dallas.
Yeah.
Exactly. But how long till that changes? Again, you could go take a running back in the 3rd or 4th round and have some success, especially if the passing game is working. And it looks like Amari Cooper's on his way to helping them fix that. So if you're the Dallas Cowboys and you're Jerry Jones here, does this impact how much money you're going to give Zeke, or if you're even going to offer the contract at all?
I think it absolutely impacts. I think that's the whole point where we're talking about this. We're talking about a guy that's right in the cusp of making his biggest paycheck ever. This is the contract that every NFL player wants to make a big one on, and it definitely is going to make an impact. It's probably not the Cowboys that are going to give it to him.
I agree. I think you let him walk. And if it's me, I get it. I like Zeke a lot. I think he really helps the team out. He's the guy that you hand the ball to and you can trust him to get whatever yards you need. He runs with power. He runs with speed. There's few guys in the NFL that can do what he can do. But when it comes to paying this guy $30-40 million worth of extension money that Todd Gurley got, because he's going to want similar numbers to what Todd Gurley got, you can't do it when you have all this other talent. If you were another team, if you were Arizona right now and you have all the money in the world and you don't need to worry about it, okay, I understand that. But there's other teams out there that are going to overpay for this guy, so you can't compete with any of them. You have to let him walk.
Brian, what's going on, man? Glad you could join us on Memorial Day. He says, if Donovan McNabb is a Hall of Famer, then so is Romo.
Well, neither one of them won, so that's important. But we'll talk about Donovan McNabb here in just a minute. Why don't we go on to talk about another guy who we haven't talked about here in a minute, while we're staying on the tune of suspensions here, Drew. How many games would you give Zeke if you're Goodell right now?
For this incident, without being arrested, even though he was handcuffed for some kind of activity in Las Vegas, to be honest, it's probably going to be a small one, but I think it's just going to, again, he's going to be the poster child of this, and it's going to be maybe a 2 to 3 game suspension.
I think it's going to be 6 or 8. I really do. I think he's going to bring the hammer down on him. He's going to hit him with, we've warned you. You've been through all this in the past. You're embarrassing the league. I bet you he probably tries to go out there and hits him with conduct detrimental to football or football operations,
Something like that.
Whatever that catch-all clause is that says, I don't like you, I want to suspend you. I think he comes down hard on him.
What's going on, Jeremy? I'm glad you could join us. Even if it's not for a short period of time, we sure appreciate your love and support towards us.
And we hope you're having a good weekend.
And Brian, what's going on, man?
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about another guy, Tyreek Hill. Because, again, just like with Zeke, nothing is confirmed because we've seen all these reports that, there's some domestic violence issues. There's violence against minors in the scenario because they have the phone call or the voicemail where he was being accused of it. How far can Goodell go for a guy that, again, you don't have any concrete proof on anything? Do you think he just sits there and hits him with the hammer and says, I don't care? The fact that you're even put in this situation is enough to suspend you?
Yeah, I think it's going to be another one of those issues as far as Tyreek goes. I think he's definitely going to find himself suspended. Hopefully not out of the Kansas City Chiefs uniform. I really don't want to lose him as far as that goes, even though if any of these allegations are right, I believe in forgiveness. And I honestly, if Kareem Hunt didn't lie to the organization and Andy Reid, I think he still would be in a Kansas City uniform. Hopefully Tyreek has been completely honest with them and upfront about it and not denying anything. As far as games and suspension and how long it should be, real quick, hey Will, what's going on, man? Glad you could join us. Sharif, it's always good to see you, man. And the scenery's gorgeous. We got a pool in front of us, guys. It's beautiful here, I'm not gonna lie.
Absolutely.
Talking about games and how many games they're going to get if it's suspension, this is something they need to look at when this contract is up. They need to be looking and putting this more into written line and concrete and not leave it up to Roger Goodell and just how much he doesn't like a player, doesn't like what happened. There needs to be a guideline set to this. If it's is it first case scenario, is it 2 games, 4 games, 6 games, and then so on and so on. I mean, we look
or does the NFL throw up its hands and say we're not the police? We're not the guys who need to be trying to prosecute these guys, because your job's not going to go out there and do all this extra investigating or anything on what you do on the weekend and everything like that. Yes, I get it. If you embarrass yourself completely and you get caught, doing something terrible, they are probably going to fire you. But it comes down to, are you actually convicted of anything?
Yeah.
And before you're convicted, your job's probably not going to fire you, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So does the NFL just need to wash its hands of it? That's what I would like to see. I would like to see them be a little bit more, if something's happened and this is proven and we know you're doing something bad, bring the hammer, throw the book. I'm 100% in on that. But until there's actual proof that somebody's doing something wrong, you can't convict somebody for something that you don't know that they did.
Levante, what's going on, man? Will says Hill is gone for at least 3 games. Sharif is saying more. Will says, but it won't unless he didn't do it. It's going to be closer to 3.
Well, that's the thing. Did he do it? And can you ever prove whether he did it or not? I don't know that there's ever going to be a case strong enough built against him because a lot of it's he said, she said in these kind of situations.
There's not a video like the Ray Rice scenario.
Right, exactly. So if it's me and I'm Goodell, I'd probably go out there and say 4 games. Just, take it. It's not a slap in the wrist. It's a pretty significant punishment, but it's also not going to ruin a season. You're not going to sink the Kansas City Chiefs because he's gone for 4 games.
And I think it's going to be a little bit more because you sit there and you look at what happened with Adrian Peterson in his scenario, and I think that came down to proof that he did do it, and it was a year.
Yeah, I think it was.
It was a year suspension. So I think Tyreek's going to be looking at a little bit longer suspension. I think it might be closer to about 8, maybe 10 games.
Okay.
I think he's going to miss the scenario of.
And that's a good point. I didn't think
about.
about AP and everything that he missed. So that is a fair point with in regards to Tyreek Hill. I guess the question comes down to how much gets proved over the summer. Because if the police come out and kind of convict him, because remember they went after AP. He was getting sued in civil court, I think by the child's mother, sitting there saying he was abusing him and everything else. And then on the other hand, he's sitting there saying he didn't do it. So that kind of I think played into it. I haven't heard any of that on Tyreek Hill. So unless some of that kind of appears, I think it's probably gonna be a little bit more lenient than maybe 8 or 10 games. But man, talk about Kansas City catching more bad luck in that time you should be winning championships. That would just be terrible for them.
Let me catch up on some of these comments. Will, I have my phone in front of me. We have a screen that you guys can't see, so we're getting all your guys' comments. As far as Cabana Girls go, if they were around us, we wouldn't be talking sports. So
we would have taken the night off.
The night would have been off. Trust me, this is better this way. When everyone's saying, of course, Will saying, "This is America. You're guilty until proven innocent."
These days, yeah,
it's
seems
very,
that way.
very true. And Brian says, "You're right. You can't punish someone without proof. Look what happened to Zeke."
I agree, and I think it might happen to Zeke again. We just talked about that. We think he's going to be in some trouble because, he's got that reputation of always a troublemaker. And Goodell, with the way the CBA is set up, has all the power. And I think we're going to see that being the biggest point of contention when the players get to renegotiate in, 2022, 2021? It's coming up next couple of years. So hopefully they don't strike because I think nothing would hurt my heart more than seeing no football on the TV on Sundays. But
we would be crushed.
Exactly.
Dustin says the NFL seems to have a hard-on for Zeke Elliott. So I'm worried about what they will do over this incident with the bouncer. He also said, tired of seeing players punished by the NFL without any legal convictions.
And here's the reverse of that, though. Remember, for as bad as Ray Rice was, I mean, we all saw the video where, this guy's guilty as sin, right?
Right.
Where was that at? It was Atlantic City. Mm-hmm. They didn't even press charges on him. So as much as I want to sit there and say, leave it to the police, do you really want a guy like that getting off scot-free and doing whatever he wants and then coming and making millions of dollars? Or do you feel like there is some sort of responsibility with the NFL? It's a tough question. It really is. There's a lot of gray area because as much as the legal system should work, I think Ray Rice threw some money at the problem and Atlantic City said, we don't need the headlines, so we're just going to sweep this under the rug.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brian saying Goodell has way too much power in the NFL and he needs to go. Well, guess what, man? They just signed an extension for him. He's going to be around for a few more years for sure.
What was it, a 10-year extension? 8?
It was, I think it might have been 5, but he already had, I think it was on top of what he already had, which wasn't ending
he's making like
soon.
50 or 60 some $1 million a year and everything.
Yeah,
it's
a struggle for him in life, I'm sure. But one thing that we always got to put in perspective here, guys, is this is a business. These guys, this is how they make their living. And when someone like Zeke or Tyreek or Ray Rice or Adrian Peterson, it doesn't matter what the name is, and they go out and they make the NFL look bad, even if the majority of fans, probably like us and everyone that's watching this show, we're really not going to turn away from the NFL, just because of a couple bad eggs. But they are worried about those small numbers of people that aren't going to be able to watch or not going to watch a football game anymore. Think about the whole kneeling thing with Colin Kaepernick, how much the viewing dipped during that season. Now it's gone back up. Man, even though the NFL is filthy rich and don't have any worried about bottom lining out and being broke, dude, they did take a dip in income. They are not income, but revenue.
Viewership.
And revenue. That's how you do it. And it hurt them. There's no doubt about it. Again, the reason why they paid Colin Kaepernick outside a lawsuit. They were trying to quite
They were just ready to be done with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So I totally agree. And Brian says if there's proof, absolutely, without a doubt, they should never be able to play as a pro ever again. Again, I think it just depends on the crime. I mean, there's different levels of murder, right? You don't sit there and say, oh, you killed somebody, now you have to go to jail for the rest of your life. There's all kinds of negligent homicide, everything else. Just like everything, there are levels to all these crimes, and I think you need to take everything by a case-by-case basis and say, okay, what did they know? What should they have done going into it? What were some of the external factors? And that's how they need to make their decision, if they make one at all. Because, again, they could absolutely walk away. I know we're getting every ambient noise out there. At least the dog stopped. The neighbor's dog.
No, it's the cops. This is a terrible neighborhood, guys. We probably shouldn't spend all night out here. No, I'm kidding.
I hope those torches protect us.
David said some young players seem to be getting in trouble being rich with all that downtime. Just chill at home, stay in shape. You can go party after you make your bread and retire.
And I'm not sure how old you are, David, but that's a lot of experience talking. And a lot of these guys, you're 22 or 23 years old, and your entire life, no one's told you that you can do any wrong.
A lot of them come from very poor income or low income, very poor atmosphere at home.
And you don't have leaders. You don't have mentors and people who teach you how to do all this stuff. Absolutely. So that's, I think, what leads to a lot of these problems. You're believing that you're Superman and you're invincible and everything, and then all of a sudden you wind up in some handcuffs, and then maybe, hopefully, you learn that lesson that you're not. So
not all of them.
I get what you're saying. I agree with you. Perfect case scenario. Everybody keeps their nose clean. Everybody keeps their hands clean. But you got to remember, these are 23-year-old, 24-year-old millionaires that have made more money than they've ever seen before in their life. They've never come from anything like that.
Right.
It's tough to make a decision with that money. I mean, true, it's hard enough for us to manage what we have. Can you imagine having multiple zeros in your bank account right now? Not that you don't, but can you imagine having all that money?
We would be doing this show in the Bahamas.
Yeah. A different kind of cabana, but yeah.
A true cabana. Hey, guys, I mean, this is just, speaking from the heart here. I think it also shows, as, most of us are men watching this show, raise your children right. Teach these kids to be humble and to appreciate what you have. I know we're not all rich. We're not all making millions of dollars here. And if you have
But you don't have to be to make bad decisions.
But you don't. And, these kids have every opportunity to be taught properly by, men like you and us. It's the right way to go. I don't mean to go off on a tandem, but I think it's the right thing to say.
I absolutely think you're right. It starts at home. It starts with you. It starts with us.
Yeah.
It starts with all of us. So, again, let this kind of be a lesson and say it's not going to happen to the people I know in my life.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about a guy with a big family himself, Ben Watson, a great role model here, but he's going to miss 4 games and worth of a PED suspension. Now, if you don't know, he retired. He said, I'm giving up football. I can't do it. He went to the doctor, and the doctor said, okay, you've taken a lot of damage. You're mentally and physically, you've taken a lot of damage over this long career you've had. We want to give you some steroids, prescribed, legal steroids, to sit there and try to help you recover. So he takes them. And then all of a sudden he gets offers by multiple teams saying, we're interested in your services. We want you to come back. Well, now you've been on steroids. You come back. You know you're getting that 4-game suspension because you know you're going to get drug tested.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to him. He got suspended for 4 games because of prescribed steroids to help him recover.
Yeah, unfortunately, there is no forgiveness in that whole scenario when it comes to that stuff.
And there can't be, right?
And I don't think there can be. I mean, because, you can, not saying that this happened, but you can get a doctor to prescribe you anything. And, Brian, we're not ignoring your comment. He's asking us how do we feel about marijuana in sports. And that's another one of these things that, we could talk about here is you can get a doctor to prescribe you marijuana. Well, guess what? The NFL doesn't care about that. They don't want you doing that substance in their sport. As far as how I feel about it, I'm all about any kind of pain relief that isn't addictive. I mean, as far as I know, marijuana has no addictive. I'm blanking on the word. It's just not addictive. You can't get addicted to it physically. Some people do mentally, but unfortunately for them, I think it doesn't matter what it is, sugar, coke,
Just Josh
TV.
Gordon, right? Yeah.
I mean, they're going to get addicted to it regardless of what it is.
Some people get addicted to fast food. I mean, everybody has vices. There's some people that just are not set up to kind of fight vices and everything like other people are. What I'll say about marijuana is this. I think the NFL is a private employer. They have every right to sit there and say, don't want you to do this. Personally, I don't see any kind of big issue with it. I think it's one of those things that as long as it's available to everyone, and that's the big issue, a lot of these states that some of these teams are playing in, it's not legal in, medical or otherwise. I think it comes down to as long as everybody can use it and we're on a level playing field, I'm okay with it as long as it's not happening on the field. It's not performance enhancing. Maybe you can say it's a little pain reducing. You can take a little bit harder hit, whatever. You can play a little bit through some injury and everything. Beyond that, it either needs to be totally legal or totally illegal. That would be my point. Not some of this talk that, oh, it's legal in Denver, it's legal in Seattle, it's legal in some of these other states. They need to be allowed and everybody else doesn't. I don't like that so much.
I'll let you read that giant comment if you'd like.
Was that Dustin's?
Yes.
Okay. Dustin says, if a player is accused of something, I think the NFL should absolutely investigate it. Players have to be held accountable. But if an arbitrator investigates and finds nothing that warrants any kind of punishment and does not recommend a suspension, then the commissioner should not be allowed to throw his power around. And then it comes down to the arbitrator. I think a lot of these arbitrators that the NFL would put in place, or that the NFL would seek to put in place, would also lean towards the NFL and the organization they come from. I know you want to get as neutral of a person to arbitrate as you can, but there's always biases. There's always stuff like that. There's still going to be this conflict, and I think there always will be. I think it all comes down to your collective bargaining, and the way they bargained it out is, okay, we get paid a little bit more, but Roger Goodell gets to decide pretty much part and parcel whenever he wants to suspend somebody. That's what they chose. I think as long as it comes down to negotiation, I'm okay with it. It didn't at first, it did this past year. Maybe they change it up in the next CBA. For right now, these are the rules we've decided to play by. Time to play by them.
Yep. And Ken, my dad, says drink can be addictive. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, never. I don't have a problem.
Do you need another one?
I do. We're moving on. Talking about Ben Watson here, Drew. Again, I think we both kind of agreed that he had to be suspended because otherwise people would retire and then unretire just roided to the gills every year. I think Ben Watson, despite him being one of the best and most upstanding NFL players, I don't think it hurts the legacy quite like Patrick Peterson. We talked about that before on a previous show. But I think it's one of those things that he still needs to do his time and step out of the NFL because if you don't, everybody, 25 to 35, is going to retire every season, get all roided up, get prescribed, get juiced up, and have that advantage on people, and then they're going to come back in the NFL and say, well, you can't do it. I was retired. I didn't think I was coming back.
Well, hopefully this was done right by Ben Watson and his agent and the Patriots. Hey, this was prescribed to me. When this drug test comes around, I am going to fail it. They were aware of it. But there's no doubt about it. Bringing Ben Watson into this organization, this team in 2019 season helps out. I mean, the Patriots are definitely hurting in the tight end position. And need as much help as possible.
Right.
And even though Ben Watson's a little bit older, there's no doubt this guy can still play. The reason why he didn't is because he just wanted to get healthy. But now he's got 4 more weeks to get healthy.
And he didn't expect the interest. He thought, the Saints said, we're not really interested. We can't bring you back. We've got some money troubles of our own. It's time to move on. You're 38 years old. We're looking to bring on some younger talent and everything. So he said, okay, retires. Like I said, goes to his doctor, gets prescribed all this that's going to help him heal. And then all of a sudden the phone starts ringing and the Patriots want you. And he said supposedly a couple other teams expressed interest in him coming and playing for them. So what do you do?
Yeah.
If you're 38 and you have 3 or 4 people saying, hey, stay in the game one more year when this is your craft, this is what you do for a living, I'd probably do it too.
Yeah,
I'd sit there
absolutely.
and say, yeah, but let's face it, I'm probably going to get suspended here.
Jason says, let them smoke all they want. He does. Jason, we agree with you, man. I think if that's what they want to do, it's all them. But we got to remember, like Jake said, the NFL's a private employer. They make that decision. They decide if they want it or not. And I guess a bunch of billionaires who have all the money in the world, they don't want
rich old men.
They don't want you smoking marijuana. That's just the best way it is.
You can go to a massage parlor in Florida, but no smoking.
Oh yeah. You can get BJ's all you want.
Exactly. Let's move on and talk about Donovan McNabb. Honestly, I have no idea how long we've been on. Normally, I'm keeping an eye on the clock here, Drew, but I can't see it. We appreciate all you guys for sticking with us on Memorial Day. It's been fun. Obviously, you can see the setting's a little bit different. Now, I want to talk about Donovan McNabb and going to the Hall of Fame and his comments saying, I should absolutely be in there. I got better numbers than Troy Aikman. That's a little bit of like Eagles-Cowboys stuff, don't you think?
Yeah, it's a little bit of rivalry.
The old rivalry revived.
Yeah. 5 straight AFC Championships games. Only won
NFC,
one.
but yeah.
NFC.
Yeah.
NFC, I'm sorry. NFC. Only won one. Went to the Super Bowl and lost. Though I cannot sit there and give that game to him saying he's the reason why they lost that Super Bowl. I mean, it was a great game offensively for him. It just didn't work out.
But on the other hand,
how many people
stacked teams, great Eagles teams, maybe all-time teams.
How many times can you put better than average players into the Football Hall of Fame, and it becomes littered with just above average? To me, Hall of Fame is the best of all time during your era. And we've talked about this in the past before. I think the Hall of Fame should even go a step above that. And there should be those players that you have the controversy, or you could talk about, that they could play in any era.
Right.
And they stand out, not just the best at that time, but the best ever to play the game. Someone like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, at the time, Walter Payton, Marcus Allen. When you look at some of these players, and there's tons more guys, there's a huge list of these players, but you look at them and you go, they can literally play in any era. That's what I think a Hall of Fame player is. And as good as Donovan McNabb was, and what he did for the Eagles organization 5 years in a row, which is really tough to beat. You probably will never see that repeated. Of course, you say that, and then something else crazier will happen. I don't see him as a Hall of Famer. I honestly don't. And you're sitting there saying he's sitting there saying he's better than Troy Aikman. Well, guess what? Troy Aikman has 3 rings on his finger. You have 0.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Now, here's my question, though. And you as a Chiefs fan, I think, can answer this better than anybody. How much of that comes down to coaching? Do you think there could be something that Donovan McNabb's looking at it and saying, look, if I didn't have Andy Reid as a coach who, up until you get into those clutch moments, is one of the best coaches in NFL history, and then he gets to the playoffs, he gets into those clutch situations and seems to fall apart every time for him, can he sit there and say, I did everything I could. You shouldn't hold that against me getting into the Hall of Fame because the play calling wasn't there, or it wasn't something else, or it was the preparation, can the blame fall on Andy Reid?
Yeah.
And that's my question. I mean, we even saw it this year when the Chiefs were absolutely rolling through everybody. I think just about everyone in the NFL picked them to beat the Patriots, who almost limped into the playoffs. And then what happened? They came out cold again in a clutch situation. Do you think that is a valid argument for Donovan McNabb? Can he sit there and say, some of this goes on my coaching? We made 5 straight NFC championships. We're doing something right.
Right. No, I really honestly don't. Because during that Super Bowl run that they lost, they had another Hall of Famer there, and that was Terrell Owens. And he played on a broken leg, and he outperformed. I mean, he did above and beyond. That's what I'm saying. When did you ever look at those NFC Championship games and go, oh, they're winning this game because Donovan McNabb is outperforming everybody else on that field? You can't give it to him. It just doesn't. I do have Sonny. What's going on, man? Don't want to ignore you. I'm glad you could join us. And we got a couple here. David says, the Patriots amaze me how they grab people off the NFL junk pile and make them productive players of them again. It's unreal. No doubt about it, man. That's why Belichick will go down as probably the greatest quarterback head coach of all time. Patriots are on some, like the word you used, unreal streak right now. As much as I am not a Patriots fan, as much as I can't stand it, when this is all said and done, it'll be something we talk about for a long, long time.
And maybe something we miss. I mean, this may be something 10 years from now where, like, I was there when the greatest franchise of history or the greatest run in NFL history happened, and I kind of miss those days. So I understand that. Also, the point I'll make is, yeah, they rejuvenate a lot of careers, but they're not afraid to wad guys up and throw them out. Usually teams will sit there and hang on to guys too long. The Patriots do not do that by any stretch of the mind. They sit there and say, you're not good enough. It literally comes down to, are you going to help me win or not? I mean, that's as base as you can get in football. There's no love. There's no nostalgia. It's, do you help me in this moment right now or do you not? And I think that is what helps the Patriots win, is the killer mentality like that.
Absolutely. Brian here says, Aikman was better and need to win games, and he proved it by going to 3 Super Bowls and winning 3 Super Bowls. No doubt about it, man. As much as Aikman didn't put up a lot of numbers, he didn't have to. He had one of the best running backs of all time in Emmitt Smith, and he had great defenses there. But anytime that you ever needed Aikman to do something, he did it. Unfortunately for him, his career was cut short off of concussions and injury. Who knows what he could have done if he would have stayed healthy, because as soon as he retired and called it quits, that team fell apart. I think that's why Aikman is now in the Hall of Fame. I think he's just one of those players that, as soon as he is gone, you realize what all he could do. He kind of just another scenario. I'm not comparing him to numbers, but look at Peyton Manning when he left the Colts. What he meant to that team.
Absolutely. I mean, you tell me Curtis Painter didn't get the job done? They did a good job sucking for luck, but beyond that, you're right. Absolutely. They had that kind of uncertainty period. They just got lucky that they got another franchise quarterback 1 year later after their other 15-year starter left. So believe me, no one's more bitter about that than me. Going back to what Brian says, though, he says, look at the Bills in the 90s. 4 straight Super Bowls. Some teams are good enough to be great in a decade, but just not good enough to win the big game. I agree with you there, but I think we also have tremendous respect for guys who show up and operate in the clutch. And there's no poster child for not being clutch than the Bills of the 90s, right? I mean, wide right still kills most Bills fans, where they were so close to winning the big dance, winning everything, and then they just did not come down and have that clutch factor. I think it hurts LeBron James. It's one of those things that this guy's been to how many finals now? What is this, 11? He's like 3 for 8 at this point or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the guy has absolutely been to so many finals, but cannot seem to win more than a couple of them. Clutch gene, whatever you want to call it, showing up in the big moments has a big impact on American sports. We respect guys who can do it, and it takes away from guys who can't. I think Donovan McNabb is on that list of guys who just didn't have quite enough to get it done in those clutch moments, all those NFC championships.
If we were talking about 5 Super Bowls, going to them and losing them, that'd be a different scenario.
You'd say Hall of Fame?
I would say Hall of Fame.
Let me throw a couple stats out because I wrote them down. I don't want to miss them. Donovan McNabb had 234 career touchdown passes, 30th all time. There are guys in the Hall of Fame who have fewer. He has 37,276 yards, 25th all time. Again, about a dozen guys in the Hall of Fame who have fewer than that. 59% completion percentage, 63rd all time. I think that hurts him a little bit. Beyond that, Drew, he has numbers that are borderline Hall of Fame. Do you think if he had one ring, we'd be talking about this being a Hall of Fame guy? My answer is yes.
Yes.
I think with one ring.
I completely agree with you. And I think you could say that with some of the Bills players that aren't Hall of Fame. Are in the Hall of Fame. I think if they would have won one of those 4 Super Bowls, you'd probably be seeing some of these players already making the Hall of Fame before, now. I mean, like, obviously Jim Kelly's there and well deserving of it. But that's also what I want to say about McNabb is if we're talking about 5 Super Bowls and not 5 NFC Championship games, it's probably a different scenario. And I'm not saying that isn't something to be proud of. I'm not saying it isn't something that's amazing. But it literally says I can't remember who said it now. If you can't win it at the right time, then you're not as good as the guy that was across the field from you.
Right. And Scott also said Aikman had the best running back ever, maybe, while he was doing it. I agree with you, but let's not pretend like McNabb had some slouches. Those were some teams. T.O., guys like Brian Westbrook, he had great players on that offense.
And Scott, that's exactly what I'm getting at, is what happened to that team when Troy Aikman decided to call it quits when his concussions got too much. They still had Emmitt Smith.
I agree.
They couldn't do it, man. I mean, and I'm not knocking Emmitt Smith. I'm not, because he is one of the best running backs of all time. I will always give that to him because he obviously holds a record in yardage that probably will never be touched.
Right.
Because the NFL isn't running the ball like it used to, and players like that in that position, running back, don't live that long in the career of the NFL. But then again, you still have to put it back to, as soon as Aikman called it done, the Cowboys weren't doing well.
No, I agree. And as much as everyone wants to rag on Aikman and say, he was just there on a great Cowboys team, football's a team game. You need to have players around them, but we can't sit there and say McNabb didn't have players around him. He had some great players around him as well.
He had some of them.
And he came up short. So, yeah, you need team.
He had some of the best rosters
right.
When you sit there and you break it all down.
Right. Okay. So, Drew, final thoughts here, man. If it's you, and it's a slow year. I know we're backlogged in the NFL because they only let 5 or 6 guys in to the Hall of Fame every year. I think it's 5 and a coach or and then a media person or something like that. Yeah. So let's say all that changes and we're a little bit thinner. Do you give it to Donovan McNabb or do you look for a guy who's able to finish? Because that's what it's about, right? You play to win the game. The old Herm quote: "You play to win the Super Bowl. You play to win everything."
Yeah.
Do you respect a guy that's not Dan Marino and putting up Dan Marino stats, not winning a Super Bowl, despite how close he's come so many times? Not respect. Obviously, we both like Donovan McNabb, but do you give him the nod to get into the Hall of Fame?
And that's where I come in and I sit there and say, you don't put in 5 players in the Hall of Fame that year. I literally
you would shortlist him before. And I understand. I appreciate that.
It's just. I don't mean to sit there and say that he's not a good player, because he really is. What he did for the Eagles organization was great. But the argument there is, can he play in any era? Can he win in any era? And he couldn't win in his era. He did great for his team, but you know what? My Kansas City Chiefs went to the AFC Championship last year.
10 years from now, are we going to remember that?
Does that matter? No, it doesn't, because they didn't go to the Super Bowl and win.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at.
So it's all about the rings? Or it's pretty close? You have to be pretty great?
You have to be pretty great, and then if you throw a ring on top of that,
right,
you seem to make it in. And everyone, let's admit, this is not Tom Brady. This is not Peyton Manning. this is not John Elway we're talking about here. This is Donovan McNabb. Do you put Donovan McNabb with those three players or your top tier quarterbacks? More than likely not. I would have to say he does not make my Hall of Fame.
I'd say he probably just edged out too. Even on a slow year, I probably wouldn't give him the nod. I'd sit there and say, look, man, you're a great player, but when we're talking about 30th all-time and 25th all-time in some of these stats and 60th all-time and, everything else, and you didn't win, I think it's too much. I think Donovan McNabb will always go down as one of those guys who is a great player, but not quite great enough to get the job done and get the job done to get in the Hall of Fame. So, didn't win a Super Bowl, doesn't win a jacket from me, I'd say, or a bust either.
Well, Will says Facebook is acting up again, guys. Sorry if it's acting up. We're going to stick with it and try to make it through. Scott says, term Hall of Famer is used loosely nowadays. Man, that's exactly what I'm getting
at.
I
think that's why football limits the number of guys in. They have a huge backlog. It's not like baseball that says, doesn't matter how many guys it is this year. If you're deserving, you wind up in the Hall of Fame. Football says we're going to take the 5 best footballers we can find and put them in the Hall of Fame, regardless of where you're at. That's why some guys wait for as long as they do in football.
All right, Brian says, but he couldn't win the big game. But hell, look at Marino. Okay, so let's compare Marino and McNabb. When McNabb was playing, was he getting the most yards in a season? Was he getting the most touchdowns in a season, passing touchdowns in a season? Was he running one of the best offenses in the league every year that he played? Could he just not win? See, Dan Marino is one of those outliers that put him in where, yeah, you're right, he didn't win the big game. He didn't get to a Super Bowl and get to win it. But every year, he dominated the rest of the players around him. He was literally considered the best quarterback in the NFL during the times he was playing. Donovan McNabb never had that title given to him.
I agree. I absolutely agree. You were never like, man, how do we stop Donovan McNabb this year? You were like, they're good. The Eagles are a very good team.
And Donovan McNabb's tough to stop.
Right. But it was never the Peyton Manning thing where he shows up and you're like, man, we have to do something out of the box to stop this guy at quarterback. You said that about Dan Marino. You say it about Tom Brady. You said it about Peyton Manning when he played. Does Donovan McNabb fall into that category for you? I don't think so. I think it was one of those things you're like, the Eagles are a really good team. We're going to have to step up and game plan and figure out a way to beat them. But I'm not like Donovan McNabb is the guy who makes it happen. And I think that's another big part of it and why he's not going to go down as big of a quarterback as some of these other guys we're talking about here.
Right.
All right, Drew. Let's move on. Let's talk about some NBA playoffs here. Obviously, we have until Thursday, but the Raptors surprised both of us. We were both Buck guys. Maybe we jinxed them. Maybe all the experts jinxed them.
We got to disagree.
Everybody else, right. Do you see them holding up against Golden State? I know we're shifting gears here pretty quick, but going into the NBA playoffs here, can you see the Raptors holding up against a team like Golden State, Durant or not? Obviously, Durant's been ruled out for Game 1. He's not going to play in that. I don't know if he's going to play the whole thing. I think he's hurt worse than they're letting on. But let's say Durant doesn't come back. Can the Raptors legitimately have a shot at winning this? They have home court.
Yeah, it's going to be exactly what Kawhi did in the Celtics game. And what he did in the series, and the Bucks series. But it's going to have to be a little bit more. Instead of averaging, I think it was like 38 points a game, he's going to need to average 42. He's going to have to average, 10 rebounds and 10 assists. His bench and Marc Gasol, who should be a key point in this series because they kind of lack at that big man scenario. Marc Gasol's going to have to go back to what he was kind of like in Memphis. This is literally going to be an issue where it's not going to be just Kawhi playing top tier. It's going to have to be the rest of his team around him. And one of the things we both said was the bench out of Toronto has to be good during this Bucks scenario.
It has to be great.
But guess what? Now they have to be great. It isn't just good. Good is not good enough. It needs to be great. As much as I want to sit there and say Toronto can win this series and I can see them winning it in 7, I don't even see the game going to 7. I think without Kevin Durant, it makes no difference. This Warriors team is built to go long into the season, long in the playoffs, and long into the finals. They've done it too many years in a row. These guys know exactly how to win. And as much as Kawhi deserves a title away from Tim Duncan, away from Tony Parker and Popovich, I don't think it's going to be this year. I think that they found the wrong team at the wrong time, even though it is the finals. I just think the Warriors have what it takes to be champions. I think that's what you wanted this. You were talking about their top scorer going down, and they didn't seem to miss a beat. This is exactly what you expected championship teams, and this is exactly what the Warriors are. All that being said, I don't want the Warriors to win. I want Toronto to win this series, but they're not. Warriors are going to beat them in 6.
Now, Brian says he's got the Warriors in 5. Will says the Raptors in 7. And Scott says Kawhi was killing the Warriors before he was injured. I agree. He's had those short stints where he was playing really, really well and able to do enough, kind of like we saw with the Bucks, where he was able to take the game over, put everything on his shoulders, and carry the load. Can he do it through a 7-game series, I should say? I don't know. I look at this and look at the way, he's already had to do it one series before going up against the Bucks. He's already kind of had to shut down a guy like Giannis, who, let's face it, is physically demanding to sit there and play defense against him. Now he's got to go play the Warriors right after that when they've been resting, they've been relaxed. I'm worried about it. I really am. I think probably I'm going to say Warriors in 6. I think Kawhi is going to do enough to snag 1 or 2 of these games at home, maybe 1 on the road in Golden State, where the Raptors are going to be able to put up a little more fight than some of these other teams in the NBA because of Kawhi. But I still see Golden State winning it. Durant, no Durant. Cousins, no Cousins. They still have the better roster. They still have 3 superstars when Kawhi's out there by himself, and everyone's going to say Siakam and everyone else. Look, it's Kawhi's team. They live and die by Kawhi at this point. When things get tough, it's got to run through him. I just don't know that he's beating a team of 3 superstars instead of a team with 1 like the Bucks were. Even that, it took a lot of kind of rallying for the Bucks to get there. They lost the first 2 games. Now he's tired. You can't start slow against these Warriors and expect to beat them like that.
No, you definitely can't. Dustin says that the Raptors want to beat the Warriors, Lowry has to show up and help Kawhi. Lowry is just streaky. And even if he does show up every game, I don't think they have enough to stop Steph and the Warriors right now, man. I am in complete agreement with you.
How about the Splash Brothers revival?
I mean, it's not just Lowry. I'm telling you, it's Marc Gasol. It's the rest of the bench. It's all these guys have to literally put up some of the best games they've done all year, maybe possibly their whole career.
And I think the NBA is almost happy it is Kawhi, because I think Kawhi Leonard by himself makes the series more interesting. I like Giannis as a player. I think he's a good one. I think the Bucks are a better team, but even as good of a team as they are against the Raptors, do I sit there and say they're going to hold a candle to Golden State? No, it'd probably be the same deal. Giannis would have a great series. Draymond would do what he can to limit him, but I think Giannis would be able to overpower him, have some good games, maybe win 1 or 2 of these, but we would not see the dominance and the way that Kawhi Leonard plays that's able to shut these guys out and maybe take some of these games over. So I think this is still the best matchup of what was left out of anyone to face the Warriors. I just don't think they have the firepower. At the end of the day, in the NBA, it comes down to the guns. Here's my other point I want to make before we move on here, Drew. I want to sit there and say that so much of the NBA's future hinges on this series. And everyone wants to write it off. Everyone's ready to sit there and say the Warriors are going to win and it's not going to matter and how boring it is. But I think there's a lot at play here. I think if the Raptors get swept or the Raptors go down in 5 and they don't put much of a fight up here, Kawhi leaves Toronto. I don't think Kawhi is going to stick around and say, the whole pitch in Toronto was, man, you can win here. And we made the finals. That's great. But if Golden State comes in and just backhands them, you're going to leave still, right? You get all the choices. You're going to go somewhere else and say, I'm going to be able to make things happen by myself.
Yeah.
Or at the place I choose to go to. If they do hang with them, I think you can convince Kawhi to stay in Toronto. You can say, look, we took it to 6. We took it to 7. We add a piece. We draft somebody who's good enough to come in. Siakam gets another year or 2 to develop himself. We can beat this Warriors team, especially if Durant walks. So there is a lot on the table, at least for these 2 franchises right now, for whether guys stick around or not. Another one. Go ahead. Do you want to?
No. Go ahead. If you finish your points.
One more point here. Durant, another thing, just like Kawhi, has a lot riding on this series. I think if the Warriors dominate and they win without Durant, he's going to leave. Why would you stay and let your legacy be you joined a team that didn't need you to win some rings and put them on the finger and pad your stats? If they do well without him, he is going to walk.
Yeah.
If they struggle and he can come back and play with a little bit of health, whether they win or not, he's going to stick around, and he's going to sit there and say, this team needs me to succeed. This team needs me to win. This could be my team. This could be my legacy. If they roll over the Raptors, you have to walk if you're Kevin Durant. Otherwise, your entire career becomes he ran away from the Thunder because he wasn't good enough to do it by himself and joined the guys who won without him.
I agree. I mean, no, you're
That was
good.
a lot.
That was great. No, you're right. I just want to catch up on some of these comments before we move. We don't have to comment back to you, but I just want to reach out to everyone that's commenting here. Scott says, Kawhi is a flat out has a heart of a champion. I think that was part of my comment when I was sitting there saying that the Warriors are a champion built team, and I wasn't trying to sit there and say Kawhi wasn't. Will says Kawhi is fun to watch. Dustin says the Raptors aren't deep enough. I think we're both agreeants with that. Brian says
we're going to need some magic out of guys like Fred VanVleet that we haven't been talking about.
Brian just comments was Warriors have way too many great players for the Raptors to stop them. VanVleet, who by the way is a Wichita State boy again, just have to let everyone know has been on fire ever since his son was born, and still not good enough to beat the Warriors. And then Will, he's saying Kawhi's going to Dallas, and also Durant to Dallas. Man, you must be a Mavericks fan there.
Well, they got Porzingis. They already have Luka Doncic as well, so they've already got something. If you land one more guy, this is a team that can win a title in Dallas. And I think Mark Cuban is going to be on the phone a lot this offseason trying to make that one guy come there.
Talk about an owner that's willing to spend some money.
Exactly. They just traded for Porzingis. I think they'll do whatever it takes to bring one more star in, especially if all it comes down to is spending a little bit of cash.
Right.
I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. Also, Durant, I don't know where he's going. I've heard the Knicks. I don't think any of these guys have decided this is where I'm going. I think there's going to be long conversations, just like Game of Thrones, in dark rooms where these guys are talking to each other saying, man, what are you going to do? What are we going to do? How much money do they have? Can we all earn? Can we all make money and go do something? Can I go here by myself and win? Can you come with me and the two of us do it by ourselves? Does this team have the bench? There is going to be so much calculus done for these teams in the offseason. Do I think anyone's doing it right now? Except for LeBron, no. I think LeBron has been the kind of guy in the forefront of recruiting here. Beyond that, if you're still in, I don't think you're thinking about it. You're thinking, I want this ring, and then my legacy. I'll think about my legacy in the offseason.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Let's go into the NHL playoffs.
Talk about
finals.
Absolutely. I mean, the Stanley Cup, we're there.
Let's do it.
We have a team like Boston, the Bruins, the title town themselves, the guys, original six, going up against the St. Louis Blues, who's been around for, over 50 years now, Drew, and they have not sniffed the Stanley Cup their entire time. I think every time they've been to the finals, all three times, or the Stanley Cup, I should say, they got swept. So this is a team that, even if you win a game or two, is it a win? Or if you miss the cup again, is it still just as crushing as getting swept those past three times?
I think this is a whole different team. This is a whole different franchise, even though it's in the same town, same uniform, same team. The addition, I've been preaching about this ever since the playoffs have started, is Jordan Binnington at goalie. That what this guy brings, he is the future of goalieing in hockey. This guy is literally playing just great hockey, and the size and the demand that he has in that net is just, it's overwhelming for a lot of opposing scoring teams. And don't get me wrong, this guy's young. He's 23 years old. He's a rookie. This is, you can't ask for a bigger stage for him to be on, and they're putting him in it. But guess what? Even in those games that went bad, didn't go great, that he let up a lot of goals, it was the week after, or the game after that, where he just dominated and shut him out. And I see that again happening. I think these Blues are serious, and they're willing to do whatever it takes defensively to stop teams. And every time they have a chance to score, they seem to make that market happen. There's no doubt about it. This team's definitely more defensive built. They rely on Binnington to have those kind of shutout games. That all being said, a good friend of mine, when the series started, sat there and told me Boston is doing some crazy things on this ice, and what they're doing as a team is incredible. And I don't mean to take anything away from Boston. They deserve every right to be where they are. Talk about a crazy streak and non-streak, or sweeps and non-sweeps going the road to get to there. And that being said, I think this is going to be one of the greatest Stanley Cup finals ever to be in NHL. If you guys are not hockey fans, I know it's one of those sports that are really hard to get behind. There's a lot of names. A lot of names are really hard to pronounce. A lot of interesting
rules that you need to. Like, you need to know what icing is and everything.
If you guys want to know what hockey's about, go watch this series. These teams are big. They love to hit each other. And you want to see possibly a future Hall of Famer and Jordan Binnington play goalie, you absolutely should watch this series.
23 years old. Already on his way to the Hall of Fame. You're all in on Binnington.
I do.
He's great. He's been very hot.
You don't take a team like the Blues to the Stanley Cup
that were statistically last in, what was it, December in the NHL.
Exactly.
And turned it around. So they're the hot team, right? But I'm going to go with experience. I'm going to go with the guys like Boston that have guys like Chara. They have all these guys that they can sit there and lean on that have been around the block. They know what they're doing. They're going to be able to lean on these guys, and the experience is going to win the day. That's why I'm going to sit there and take Boston to win it again. I've been all Blues to this point in the Western Conference, right? I've been saying they're the hot team, but I think here is where the energy runs out, and I think they probably run out of the steam that's got them to this point. You're going up against a team that's been there, has been in these clutch situations. Now, I know they're losing 2-1 in Game 1. I'm going to take the Boston Bruins in 6 because I think it's hockey. I think a lot of bounces go certain ways. I think guys get hot for certain games or things go your way. I think the Bruins win it in 6, and experience wins the day for the first time in the Blues kind of run here up to this point in the Stanley Cup.
Right. Just hit some of these comments. Dustin says, last in the NHL in January and now in the finals. Don't sleep on us. I think he meant to say Bennington will lead, or well, Winnington will win the way. He didn't misspell it. He meant to spell it that way. Brian says, I hope the Blues win, taking nothing away from the Boston. And Emily says, watch for the fights.
That's why we watch hockey, right?
I mean, I'm not going to lie. That's one of the funnest things about hockey is when those things start to happen and the refs step away. It's kind of fun.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I can't wait to see how much of that we see because they are physical teams. They're big teams. They're teams that know how to, get in people's faces, especially you look at some of the sizes of the defenders on St. Louis. They are huge. Absolutely. I think it's a great way to kind of set things in your direction is you just go knock somebody out or you knock somebody down at the very least. Doesn't matter that you go to the box after that. You get the team fired up. And usually after that, I think good things happen for teams. I bet you we probably see a couple fights here before the Stanley Cup's done.
No doubt about it. Just last final thought. Not even a thought. It's just what I think is going to happen. I think the Blues will take this. I think they will take it all the way to 7 games. I think it will be a fought series. And there's going to be games where you're going to see it be extremely low scoring, 1-2, 1-0, and then you're going to see your 5-4, or your 6-5 games as well. I think this series is going to give you everything you want in a hockey series.
I think so too. And again, if you're a casual or you're not that interested in hockey and you want to see what it's all about, this is the time to get in. You're going to see 2 of the best teams playing the best hockey right now going up against each other. It's fast, it's physical. There's always that kind of moment you're waiting for where things can change and turn on a dime. If you're not a hockey fan, now's the time to get on board.
No doubt.
Absolutely. All right, Drew, do we have any more comments before we get out of here?
No, I think everything's being said. Will, we appreciate all your comments, man. I'm going to do special thanks, guys, and if I missed your name, I'm so sorry. I don't have a pen and piece of paper in front of me, but I am going to try to hit everyone that did comment. I know I got Brian and Will and Sonny and Sharif and Scott and David, and dude, you guys are all awesome. Ken, Emily, Dustin, you guys are all awesome. We appreciate all the love, and again, we just want to remind everyone: Happy Memorial Weekend. Remember, this is for the country we live in. The reason that we get the freedom to sit here and talk sports with you guys, and we wouldn't have that freedom if it wasn't for our servicemen and women. Again, thank you guys so much. If you served, or if you have someone serving right now, give them our love. We absolutely appreciate it. If I had a little flag, I'd be waving it right now.
We left it on the other bar.
At the bar, there's always a flag standing there. We love our country, and we love you guys for sticking around with us.
Absolutely. It was a fun show. Obviously, the bugs have shown up now that the sun has gone down. We're going to get out of here before they eat us alive. Drew, I had a lot of fun. Guys, I appreciate each and every one of you. I know Drew does too.
Yeah.
We do this because it's more fun doing it with you guys, and we appreciate all of the comments, all of the love, all of everything else.
Homero. I'm sorry.
Welcome in, Homero. Welcome into the show, guys. We will see you back on Wednesday. Have a great rest of your weekend, whatever's left of it, and we hope to see you Wednesday to talk about football, because we're going to be starting our off-season series where we're talking about individual teams.
Let's jump real quick, just so everyone knows. Guys, a lot of our shows coming up are going to be about individual teams and all about their schedules, and as soon as the schedules come out, it'll be a little bit easier to talk about, but we have to start a little bit early because if you think about it, 32 teams, football's coming quick if we talk about it 3 times a week. Guys, even though these aren't your teams, trust me, your other teams will be talked about. It's a lot
and there's a good chance they play your team, or they're going to have an impact on your division.
It's a lot of information, and we'd love to hear it, man. If you guys aren't well, I know Will love this. If you're not a Bucks fan, let's get on there and talk about the Bucks. Sit there and make Will feel like he's just one of 1,000 people that likes the Bucks.
Or if you want to troll, now's your chance. If you don't like somebody,
But
now's your chance.
We love talking sports, you guys.
Absolutely. We will see you on Wednesday. So for Sports Around the Bar, I'm Jake, your bartender. This is Drew. We will see you guys then.